John is going to be speaking about rehabbing from a position of power. John is a real estate investor, coach, and host of Flip Talk podcast. Great podcast. I highly recommend y'all download that. He has gone from counting pennies in order to buy groceries to flipping hundreds of properties at a year in highly competitive markets. And I know you're going to share what market you're from. So it is a very highly competitive one. But we are so happy to have you, and go ahead and take it away.
All right. So today I'm going to talk about rehabbing from position of power. A little bit about me. I take these and I turn them into these. And like Jamie said, we've been known to do over 100 a year, in usually around 130, 140 properties a year rehabbing. And I've been doing rehabbing since 2003. I host a podcast called Flip Talk. It's been around since 2016. And I even have a little series out there called the Rookie Playbook that's about 49 episodes that really takes you from, I have this crazy idea, I want to be a real estate investor, all the way through getting started. So I host a high-level mastermind, which is really cool. I've done on my side gig over $1 million in assignment fees in a 12-month period. So just to kind of show, I've done some really, really cool stuff, but it hasn't always been that way. So just real quick, I'm going to hit this part real quick and we'll get into the meat of this. I started back in 2003, door knocking, pre-foreclosures, and got really good at talking to sellers, made a lot of money. I was on top of the world. Thought everything I touched turned to gold, got arrogant. I became an ego. I'm not a jerk. I'm not afraid to say it. I got an ego. And then 2008 happened and it all fell apart. And it was like these gravitrons, just the money was being sucked out of me. I had multiple businesses. I wasn't focused on my core business. And I went through a really hard time, which is something that I'll get into in depth in a different conversation. But just to kind of give you a synopsis, my home was in and out of foreclosure. This is a judgment. This is county records. I got a $677,000 judgment against me in September of 2010. That by the time I actually pulled my head out of my rear end, had ballooned to almost $1 million with attorney's fees and interest. So it was $1 million in debt the second time I got going. So anybody on here that's even thinking about it, real estate investing, if you're newer and you feel like you can't because you don't have cash or credit, I didn't have credit, obviously. So today, we're going to talk about the secrets to rehabbing from position of power. My goal is to kind of take your business from feeling like this, like you're throwing spaghetti against the wall, or you're feeling like this, like you're being defeated, and really give you some ideas that will help you feel like you're running a business that you control. So this house right here in particular was one of my aha moment houses. I was standing in front of this house. It's a rehab we did a handful of years ago, and I was standing in front of this house, and I had just got out of my truck. I was getting ready to close the door. I was meeting a contractor to pick paint colors, of all things. And I was late to pick my son up, and I needed to submit invoices to my investor for reimbursement, or I wasn't going to be out of money that week. And so my stress level was just off the charts. And I was sitting here and I just kind of was like, this sucks. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so I don't know how many of you on here have felt that way in your businesses, whether you're rehabbing or wholesaling or, you're doing something else, but you have these moments that just suck, these points of, you got to either stop what you're doing, change what you're doing, or grow through it. And so I decided I was going to grow through it, and I had to do some things differently. So the first thing I did was I started questioning everything. I started looking at the way things are always done, and I started questioning everything. There's this box that everybody usually operates in. There's this way that you should do something. And I realized that what's in the box doesn't matter. I needed to start thinking outside the box. I needed to start looking at things differently. So I like to use this eye chart. It basically, one rarely sees what's right in front of them. And it's very, very true. So, it's one of those things where, we can't see the forest through the trees, or we can't see the obvious, or maybe it's just, you got to get it from the computer and walk away, or get it from your doing and walk away to come back and actually see how to solve the problem you were having, type of situation, if that makes sense. So I started looking for the path of least resistance in my business. Any way that I could make my life easier was important to me. So these are some of the things that I learned from that. So the first thing was I need to implement systems. And a lot of people will hear systems and they'll think, oh, well, it's this complicated thing. Really, a system is a simple process or standard designed to set the expectation or boundaries for which your team is going to perform within. It's if this, then that. If this happens, then that happens. And it's really that simple. Everybody's systems and their operational organization is going to be different in some ways. There are going to be some probably crossover similarities. You could probably learn some from me and take to yours. But a lot of them are going to be developed based on how you want your business to look. And it really is as simple as seller signs a contract. What's the next step? Okay, so for our next step, for instance, seller signs a contract. It goes into we send it into our transaction coordinator. She opens escrow. She opens a Slack channel. She notifies everybody that is involved with what their next step of that process. That's a system. So just to kind of break it down, systems are people, they're a process, or they're a program. So just to kind of really, I guess, hone in on that. You're going to hire somebody to do a task. You're going to create a process. Like, again, our process, when somebody submits a contract, it goes straight to our transaction coordinator, and then they have, 3 steps that they got to do right away. That's a process, or it's a program like a CRM in your organization that you implement to help you keep track of things. It could be a CRM. Slack is a program that we use in our operation for communication. So systems are really that simple. A person that's going to handle the task, and they're going to handle the task the same way each time. A process that is, the steps that people need to go through, or a program that's going to solve your problem. So just to kind of go through some of the systems and processes and the way we look at things, I'll be doing that in some of this conversation. One of the things that we don't do in our operation as part of our systems, I guess, is we don't gamble. It's one of our rules. The house always wins when you gamble. So for instance, when we're buying a property, the first mistake people make when they talk about rehabbing from position of power is they don't buy right. Okay. You can't square peg round hole your rehab. If your rehab's 50 grand, your rehab's going to be 50 grand. You can't make it 40 to make your numbers work. If the ARV is 200, the ARV is 200, the after repair value is 200. You can't make it 225 to make your numbers work. And in a market like this, remember I started back in 2, 3, 4, and 5. A lot of people were speculating their rehabs. They were looking at, well, if I take 3 months to sell it, it might go up 20 grand. Well, and that's kind of what's been happening right now. But the reality is you got to be able to run the numbers at what the numbers are in that moment, which you can sell it for today. And if they work, they work. You don't want to stretch it. You don't want to square peg round hole it. And we're very particular about how we do that. So one of our systems in our organization is we have one person run the numbers all the time. He's the broker for our real estate arm, and he runs all of our numbers and tells us all of our ARVs. And the reason why is because we got to verify, right? I don't want to trust my acquisitions person to give me that number because they want me to buy that deal. I don't want to trust the agent who brought me that property, even though their numbers might be spot on. I don't want to trust their numbers. It's my responsibility to do my own homework and understand my own business. The wholesaler that brought me that property, their numbers may be spot on, but I don't want to trust that's true, because the reality is, why they're very, very great agents out there and they're very, very great wholesalers out there. We have some phenomenal, honest acquisitions people in the industry. There are some people that will make numbers work so that they can get paid. And I never trust anybody who gets paid off of me saying yes and buying something. So we have a system in our organization, like I said, where somebody always gives us our number, and that's the number we live and die by. So that's a system. Our project managers must confirm our rehab budget before we close. A really quick story here. We had a situation where I trusted my acquisitions person to give me that number. And ultimately, at the end of the day, he said it was going to be $35,000 all in. The project ended up being almost a $60,000 rehab because my acquisitions person didn't know to check the AC unit and realize it was on its last leg. He didn't realize the house actually had plexiglass windows. I mean, who thinks a house has plexiglass windows? My project manager knew to check for that. So, we don't trust anybody's opinion on whether or not we're going to close on that property. We trust our project managers, and that's it. He tells us we're good on our budget. We're good on our budget. So just a few things, we set these rules in place that we got to live by, and it keeps us from having the back end stress of, trying to rehab a property on a budget that's not going to work, because we got to make the numbers work, if that makes sense. So, okay. So the other problem that a lot of people have in this business is they are using their own money in projects. They're balling hella broke. They're always trying to put a down payment or pay for the rehab or use all of their money to rehab. And when you're trying to scale a rehabbing business, and you have your money in projects and you're not able to buy food or pay your mortgage or pay your team, or you're stressing to do all those things, you're not running a business from a position of power, you're running a business from a position of weakness. So one of the things we do in this is we got control of the money. You either control the money or the money controls you. And just to kind of give you a scenario, there's a typo in here somewhere. I think it's on the other page, but just to say, follow me here, you buy 2 properties a month. Each property is $20,000 a month, and you pay a $1,000 per month payment on each property. Your average turn time is 120 days. Okay. So 4 months is your average turn time. So in that process, you're going to buy 2 properties in month 1, 2 properties in month 2, 2 properties in month 3, 2 properties in month 4. Between the down payments and the monthly payment, you're going to be $180,000 out of your own pocket before month 1 turns and you get paid in a perfect scenario, right? So who here can do that? In times 2, 3, 4, 5, you're trying to scale a rehab company, if you're trying to do 10 a month, 15 a month, 20 a month, and you're putting your own money in projects, that's a recipe for disaster, because you're always going to be out of money. You're always going to be trying to sell something, get rid of something, squeeze something, make something work in order to eat or market or hire. So what we don't do right from the beginning is we don't use hard money because it requires down payments. We don't use our own money in any project. I treat my own money like kryptonite. And we don't work with any lenders that won't lend us 100% on our project costs. So we only borrow from lenders that give us our rehab costs, our holding costs, and our purchase price 100%. We don't go out of pocket at all. Now, we will make monthly payments on interest, just to kind of clarify that, but we won't pay any kind of points. We don't pay anything, closing costs, nothing. They loan 100% of what it costs us to acquire that property. And the reason we do that is because we want to be able to have that position of power. A lot of people will ask me, how does that conversation go with your lenders? And really, it's about framing. It's about framing everything in life. If you come in and say, this is the way something has to be, you come in and you don't properly explain it, you come in and you don't understand somebody's point of view, you're going to have issues in your conversation with people. So what we did is sat down with our lenders and said, look, you think we're a better bet if we have skin in the game. And I can understand why you feel that way. But the reality is, and I run the numbers, I'm always out of money. And so if one thing goes wrong, that house of cards falls down, and how am I a good bet? Now, I'm a better bet if you lend me 100%, I keep my money in the bank and I operate my business from a position of power. And because if one thing goes wrong, I can act from a position of power and not a position of weakness, and the house stays strong. The foundation is strong. And I just frame that conversation that way. The lenders that got it, I continue to work with. The lenders that didn't, I stopped working with. So another thing we did is we went to, now these aren't our contractors, but we went to our vendors, like our flooring vendor, we'd had a cabinet and granite vendor that we've worked with for a lot of years, our window vendor. So, and we got net 30 terms. So in other words, what happens now is they come and install the flooring and they give us the invoice, and we don't have to pay that invoice for 30 days. So even though we have 100% of the money to do it, that money sits in our bank sometimes till after the property closes before we actually have to pay the invoice. So it really put us in a position to where we weren't trying to pay all the money out right away. We get the money in reimbursement from our lender, and we would be able to sit on that money. We wouldn't use it for anything else because that's not right. We'd be able to sit on that money and wait out this 30-day period and pay these invoices interest-free in almost every case. So just a little trick there. We went to our lender and we said it cost us, just to use a round number, an average of $2,500 in our marketing to get a deal. And we said that's a project cost. So we're going to add that to our line item as a project cost. And so what happens now is, say you're buying 10 properties a month, you're now putting $25,000 a month back into your pocketbook for marketing. You're replenishing your marketing. So what we did is we just started neutralizing expenses. If you notice what I'm doing here, I'm not putting any money out at the purchase of the property. I'm not having to pay invoices right away. And then I'm getting $2,500, we're actually getting a little more now, but I'm getting $2,500 back for every property that I buy, every rehab that I buy, back into my bank. And somebody say, well, does that cost interest? Yeah, but it's pennies. It's pennies in interest when you really think about the fact that my marketing budget is net neutral. My marketing budget is paid for. So I'm getting 25,000, 50,000, depending on how many properties I'm doing that month, back into my bank account that I can deploy for marketing now. So what happens is I'm not spending money on marketing. Now I can make a better choice on hiring. You guys kind of see how this kind of snowballs into a very strong position of power. So we want to operate in everything we do from strength and not weakness. And it comes down to systems and processes, putting yourself in a position of power. And you do that by framing your conversations properly with the right people and creating the right relationships. So, okay, contractors. These are the bane of our existence, right? In a lot of cases. And the reality is contractors, most good contractors just want to know they're going to get paid and not screwed over. Just like we want to know that the work is going to get done and we're not going to get screwed over. So again, framing it and understanding, you want to sift through the bad contractors. You want to sift through the people who don't understand what we're doing. And so, we find them, in various places. We find them through Craigslist, referrals, driving for contractors. We drive neighborhoods looking for people who are doing work. We give them our card, we get their card. And, I'm driving through a parking lot and, going to the grocery store and I see a truck that has a phone number on it. I'm going to take down that number. I'm going to give that guy a call and we have as many conversations as we can have. I've heard of people putting bandit signs at Home Depot. I've not done that, but that's a good trick as well. And ultimately, whatever you can do to turn the dirt to get the gold, right? So I do apologize. I am coming off of a cold, not COVID, but so I will have to clear my throat from time to time here. You want to look at two things when you're hiring a contractor. You want to look at a finished job, okay, and you want to look at a work in progress. Now, the reason I want to look at a finished job is not because I want to know how good they did on the work. I want to look at a finished job because I'm looking for their character, okay? I'm asking them questions about stuff that may not be perfect, and I'm looking to see how they respond. I'm looking to see who they blame, if they're blaming their homeowner or their crew, or if they're taking responsibility. I'm looking for a job in progress. I'm looking to see who's there. How clean is it? How safe is it? Ultimately, at the end of the day, I want to make sure that they're running a proper business. If what they say doesn't line up to what I see, I know that they don't believe that I know what I'm doing. If there's safety hazards, cleanliness hazards, if there's nobody on the job, if there's one guy on the job and there should be 10, those kind of things, those are the things I'm looking for. So I want to know if they're teachable and coachable. And so I do that by listening to how they respond to answers to my questions. Like I mentioned earlier, do they respond by blaming other people? If they don't have enough people on a job, is that because they are, not managing their job properly, or is it because they're not controlling their team? Like what's their answer there? If they blame somebody else, is that something that they should be taking responsibility for? We're listening to those kind of things. So we're looking to see if that individual is somebody that's going to be a team player, that's going to be honest and forthright with us, that's going to be teachable and coachable. We're really looking to build a team. When I say teachable and coachable, is because I want to be able to develop a contractor into a strong member of our team. I don't want to just be one and done. So I'm looking for somebody that I can work with for a long time. Okay. We set the standards. Who's the boss? And so you got to know your value. A lot of people go in and they'll check their value at the door and they'll give their value to the contractor. I'm in control. I'm the boss. It's my project, my money. It doesn't matter if the guy knows more than me or not. I'm hiring somebody that knows more than me about certain things because I want to make sure that a job gets done that I can't do myself. But that doesn't mean I'm not the boss. So you got to know your value. You're not looking for a buddy. One of the things I found is the people who I like the most usually end up being the worst contractors. You're looking for somebody that is, again, you're looking for somebody that's going to be able to do a task for you. Over time, you can build a good relationship, become good friends, but out of the door, you're looking for somebody that you can control their process. You want to set the standards on the numbers. So you want to talk about numbers. You're looking for wholesale pricing. You're not a retail customer. They can't treat you like a retail customer. At the same time, they have to make money. So you want to find that spot to where you're getting a deal, they're making money, nobody's happy, but everybody's happy, if that makes sense. So ultimately, at the end of the day, you want to find somebody that understands that you need a price break, but they are still allowed to make money. You want to discuss change orders. Now, change orders are very, a very strong thorn in a lot of our sites. A lot of contractors will underbid a job and then change order you to death to make their money. A lot of contractors will not specifically or purposely not put something in the bid because they know they can charge 2 to 3 times the amount when they change order you. So change orders are very important, and we're very specific. A change order price point is exactly the same price point it would have been in the original bid. And so part of that is we start standardizing a lot of our numbers. Obviously, right now with COVID, that makes it a little more difficult. But the point is, if it's going to be $1 to, say a linear foot to install that particular thing, on the bid, it's going to be $1 linear foot on the change order. If it's going to be $40 to install that light on the bid, it's going to be $40 on the change order. And we're very particular about that. The other thing is change orders have to be signed by us and them. Otherwise, they will not be paid. We're very specific about that. I've been caught so many times at the end with $4,000 or $5,000 that I didn't expect because of change orders that I wasn't either told about or I was told about and just didn't even think about and didn't sign off on and didn't keep track of. And you want them in writing because it's funny. You talk about the price point and say it's going to be $2,000 to do this one thing on a change order, and you talk about it, but then when you finally get the bill, it's like $3,500. Well, you want it in writing at the time of service because for some reason it's always more. After the time of service, everybody understands things differently. Maybe I heard it wrong. Maybe they said it wrong. Whatever, it ends up being more. So you always want it signed and approved at the time of service before service is done. And then understanding the numbers. Why are the numbers important? It's not about the cheapest bid. Okay, that's the one thing I want to really stress here. There's a lot of people who try to go for the cheapest bid. It's about the best bid, right? It's the same thing I say to homeowners, right? When I'm negotiating with homeowners, I'll say, do you want the highest price, the highest offer, or do you want the best offer? Right? And so that's really what you're trying to get is you want to get the best bid. And the best bid isn't always the cheapest bid. A lot of times people will underbid you because they want to get the job, and then they'll either bail on you halfway through because they didn't realize they underbid you, or they'll change order you to death. So you got to understand the numbers enough to know that it should cost $30,000 to do that property. If you got a bid for 20, there's a problem. Okay, setting the standard, you want a reasonable standard of quality. You want to let them know when and how they're going to get paid. And you want to let them know what you will and will not tolerate. Those are very important things as well. Who buys materials? I'm very particular that they buy materials. And the reason why is because first and foremost, it's a full-time job for me to have somebody run materials. Second, I don't trust. I've gotten taken advantage of by contractors. I like to use this house. Quick story. Contractor did me wrong. He said he'd make it up to me, paint my house for free. And so I was naive at the time still. I didn't understand the numbers, what it took to do certain things. And we're walking through this 1,800 square foot house, and in the living room, he said 3 5-gallon buckets of paint. In the kitchen, he goes 1 5-gallon. Down the hallway, he needs 1 5-gallon. Each bathroom, he needs 1 5-gallon for each. And for each bedroom, he needs 1 5-gallon for each. I'm writing this down. I go to Sherwin-Williams and set it down, and I tell the guy I need to buy this paint. He says, "How many houses you painting?" I was like, 1. He's like, "How big is the house?" I'm like, "Well, why?" He's like, "Because you're buying the paint to paint this giant mansion." So ultimately, when you have those deals of you buy the materials and they do the labor, it's funny how it always takes more materials to do the job than it normally would. And I found that to be the case a lot. The other thing is I don't have to worry about what I do with the leftovers. I don't want to store them. I don't want to worry about them. I don't care where they go. So I negotiate a price point for materials and labor included with my contractors. I set it and forget it. I don't worry about it. They worry about the materials. The other thing they can't do is they can't blame me when the materials aren't on the job because it's not my responsibility. So the different types of bids, basically you have $30,000 labor only, $30,000 for everything, $2,000 for this room, $1,000 for this room, $5,000 for this room, or you have line item, right? We prefer line item bids because first of all, we want to know that the contractor understands the project. They understand the project cost. They understand what's needed in the project. It acts as a scope of work. And we got clarity on what they're going to do. So that way, if we have a conversation, if they say 30,000 all in, and they say, we talk about something specific being in the bid, and we come back and that isn't done, and he says, well, it wasn't in the bid, I can't argue that. And it creates a distrust in a relationship that I want to have for a long time. And distrust in a relationship you want to have for a long time doesn't work. So ultimately, a line item bid, if they come back and say, so that's not in the bid, then we can say, hey, you're right, that wasn't in the bid. You counted 10 lights and there's actually 12. Go ahead and do 2 more, right? It just creates a position of trust. It lets us know where we stand. It has clarity in what needs to be done. So line item bid every time. I will not work with a contractor. They will not do a line item bid. If they won't do a line item bid, they're either lazy or they don't understand their business. So, okay. Real quick here. I know that my time is running, so I'm going to move a little faster. Deposits, how you pay your contractor is very important. So deposits, I do not do deposits. A lot of the way people pay their contractor is in draws. You'll do a deposit, then you'll do draw 1 and draw 2, and then final payment, or deposit, draw 1, and final payment. To me, that's a recipe for disaster. First of all, most state laws limit deposits. For instance, California is it's $1,000 or 10% of the job, whichever is least. Okay. So for instance, if it's a $50,000 job, the most I can give you for your deposit is $1,000. And so when a contractor comes in and asks for a $10,000 deposit or 50% down, they're actually breaking their rules, the law or whatever here in California. And a lot of states have those laws, so know that. You can use that in your argument. The other thing is that I don't see why a contractor needs $10,000 to start my job when the first thing he's going to do is demo. And so it just doesn't make sense to me. You control the money, you control your contractor. And I want to keep honest people honest. And whenever you do draws, deposits and draws, it inevitably fails that you end up in a position where you are at weakness. The contractor hasn't finished the $10,000 worth of work you gave him, but he needs the other $10,000 in order to pay his team because he's not running a proper business. And therefore, if you don't give it to him, he's not going to show up. And then you have to give him the next $10,000, even though he hasn't finished the first $10,000. So now you're $12,000, $15,000 in the hole of this contractor, crossing your fingers, hoping that he doesn't get hit by a car, have a heart attack, or just not show up, right? So I don't know how many people on here have been in that situation. I've been in it more times than I can count, and it sucks to worry about whether or not somebody's going to show up, and a lot of times they don't. And so we don't do deposits or draws. So we set the timeline. We dictate how we pay and when we pay. And one of the most important things to understand here is a good contractor just cares about the fact that they're not going to get screwed over, right? They care about the fact that they're going to get paid, and they just want to know that they're going to get paid. So we make sure that we're very clear on what we can do and when we can do it, what we can't do, right? So we pay weekly. I'm going to get into that in just a minute, but if you are on a draw schedule with your lender and your draw schedule is every 2 weeks, then make his payment the week after. That way, everything that happens that could screw up you getting your payment on time isn't going to affect that contractor, So always under promise and over deliver, and the relationship will be good. Be clear what you can and can't do. If they tell you that you have to do something that's not going to work for you, tell them you can't. Explain why. And if they don't want to work with you, then don't work with them. You're not, I know right now, again, it's a little different, but there are other contractors out there, and you're not going to be running a good business if you're beholden to them controlling you and your situation and making demands that you can't meet. It's a recipe for disaster. So our system, we have them invoice us by Friday for the next week, telling us what they're going to do in the next week. We cut their checks on Tuesdays. We submit to reimbursement for our lenders. Some of our lenders hold back the rehab money. That's fine with us. We submit. We get the money in. Usually Thursday is when the money comes in. We have the money in our bank account. And as long as the contractor's done with the work for that week that they said they were going to do, we handle the checks by Friday afternoon. And what that does for us is it tells us what to expect to pay out for the week. We are able to cut the checks and give transparency to our lenders. Our lenders put the money in our bank account, and then we pay the contractor once the money is in our bank account. So it neutralizes any kind of cash flow issues. It makes it to where we're only paying out what's coming in for this. So our business doesn't struggle in that arena of cash flow at all when it comes to rehabbing. So ultimately, at the end of the day, it puts us again in a position of power. Now, people always ask me, well, what if they're not done by Friday? Well, if it's the first time I've worked with you, then we're going to recut the check for what you did finish. If I worked with you on a regular basis and it rained on Tuesday, so you couldn't paint the exterior, but I know you're going to show up on Saturday to paint the exterior, then I'm totally okay with giving you your full check. So the whole idea of systems is you shoot at the boundary, and then you can go up or down from the boundary if you want to. Okay, last here, have a presence. You need to manage your manager, basically. So a lot of people will think, well, I'll just hire a contractor and I won't go to the house for a month. There's a lot of reasons to have a presence. You are a teacher, you are a coach. You're looking for somebody to be part of your team long term. You're trying to guide them and mold them into what you need them to be successful within your organization. Even though they are a 1099 employee, they're not your employee. They're not beholden to you. We do have responsibilities as leaders to develop people around us to make them better at what they do and make them better so they can serve us. So having a presence allows us to catch things as they're happening. Sometimes when you're in the weeds, you can't see what's the issues. Like I said earlier, you can't see the forest through the trees. And so ultimately, when they're in there, sometimes they don't notice, even though they're great, they don't notice that there's an issue. So ultimately, at the end of the day, you want to have that second pair of fresh eyes to catch things, and you want to catch things before you can't afford to fix them. So, like I said, you want to keep honest people honest, and make sure that they're, showing up when they say they're going to show up. And I just said it here, you want to catch issues before they become uncorrectable or too expensive to correct them. And so you want to be able to resolve them in a manner that makes sense. So a few lessons that I have from losing it all real quick here. Know your why. These are my why. When you have purpose, you can do great things. Take action each and every day, no matter what yesterday's brought you. Don't stay on an island. Find your network. Obviously, if you're on something like this, then you are surrounding yourself with people that are giving you knowledge, and it's important to do it on a regular basis. And then always act with purpose, be decisive, and move on opportunity when it's right in front of you. So, and then of course, if you got value from this today, go check out the Flip Talk podcast, like it, subscribe it. I haven't done a new episode in a handful of months, but we're getting ready to do a relaunch. So become a subscriber now and you'll get all the new episodes when they come out. And of course, this is how you get a hold of me. So this is where you find me, and you can just scan that and I will be available to you. So, and then I think that's it. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here.
All right. Thanks so much, John. There's a lot of that stuff you put in there that I remember Jamie and I, we learned from you several years ago, and helped us tremendously, especially the private lender, and how you manage everything from how you set up the relationship with the lender and you set up the terms on the various deals. So I love it. I love it.